Thailand Tourism Forum. Today we're live from Thailand. We've got the Rosewood, Bangkok, which is our team there, and we have an international team also in Singapore, and I'm here in Phuket. Welcome to Thailand's largest tourism event. We've got 1,400 people signed up today. And I think when we talked about doing a special Thailand Tourism Forum today, what's important in this country? When we look around the world today, it's an amazing fallout from the global pandemic. COVID-19 has taken a toll on the global economy. But when we look at tourism, we have serious things to talk about today because the global tourism economy is shattered right now. It's broken, okay? It's bent, and we have to find out how to fix things out there as well. And here in Thailand, there's millions of jobs on the line. I think, that's what makes it more profound in terms of what we're doing with our industry today. Today, when we look back in 2019, there were 227 million domestic visitor stays. We're talking about the reopening of tourism now as well in Thailand, but out of that, is it going to be enough? And frankly speaking, it's not enough. We have to talk straight today because tourism needs a voice. It's the brand of Thailand. It's the face of this great nation. And it's so important that we have a voice here and tell the government that they have to open international tourism back. It has to be safe. It has to be secure for the residents of Thailand, but it also has to be providing jobs. Otherwise, if we delay much further, those jobs are not going to exist, okay? As we said today, we're bent, but we're not broken, okay? This is an industry which has resiliency. I've been in Thailand 1997. We've also seen after 9/11, after tsunamis, after government issues as well, in terms of political demonstrations, but tourism does come back. And what we know today is how are we going to make things happen today? And how are we going to move forward and change that narrative and how to control this destiny? And that starts with a dialogue and giving ourselves a voice today. We've got a great lineup today of speakers. We're going to be talking with one of Thailand's largest hotel groups. We'll also be speaking about international aviation, the importance of how that goes and how that's going to open up into our tourism economy. With STR, we'll be speaking about it from a global perspective and regional perspective. What's happening right now? What can we expect to happen in Thailand? And also looking at bank financing, looking at hotel reopenings, talking about how can hotel owners decide when is the right time to open their properties right now, okay? That's the decision we have to make. I think something we have to do today for Thailand Tourism Forum going forward is say, change the narrative. We've got to get back to business. This is the hotel business. This is the tourism business. And we need to get moving again as a country and as an industry today, okay? That's where our starting point is today. So we've got 1 hour, we've got great speakers coming up. 2 housekeeping points certainly is the presentations you'll see on screen today, those will be sent to you within an hour and also a video of these presentations. I think my final words, I'm going to be speaking to my co-moderator, David Johnson at the Rosewood in Bangkok in a minute, who's going to be also leading the discussion today. But what you have to do is say, let's get back to work. Today we're saying with Thailand is get shit done, okay? We've got to go back to work as a tourism industry, and Thailand has to get back to work. That's our #1 objective today. David Johnson in Bangkok, are you there? Okay, David, you need to unmute. I guess I have a little too much fun in Bangkok today. They're at the Rosewood. It's so nice to be back in a hotel. Hi, David. How are you?
Oh, thanks. Very well indeed. Thanks. There's a big storm outside, but we're all good. We're nice and dry up on the 28th floor here. I'm here with Kuntirayut Chirativat, who's the CEO of Centara Hotels and Resorts, and we're going to talk about the conversation. Thailand Hotels Talk Back. Kuntirayut, welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you just give us a little bit of an update, please, on Centara Hotels and what's the situation at the moment?
Okay, all right. If we talk about the situation in Bangkok here, we have 4 hotels in Bangkok, but our flagship hotels, Central Grand, Central World, remain open. The thing is because we have the medical staff that stay with us, and also that we have some field business. But after the lockdown, that we are in stage 4, we see some good sign. We see some meeting inquiries. We see some meetings, coming up, especially the medium-sized meeting at our hotels. So I think we see good sign, but this is more on the local side. But we also have inquiry for the international, but of course, we don't know when the country can be open, right? So we cannot give any more time frame on this yet.
Right.
But it's good sign. Good sign.
Thank you. Meetings, very interesting sector. And we're actually meeting here today. We have a hybrid Zoom meeting, and we are appropriately socially distanced. Thank you. Job losses. How have you coped with retrenchments and retaining your staff so you're really ready for recovery?
Okay. Hotels, as you know, the staff is very important. Okay. We treat our staff as part of our family as well. So in order to prevent that, what we're going to do, that we tell the staff that, hey, we're in the same boat. Okay. So what we did is that we did the leave without pay. As we do gradually, a few days until now it's about 4 or 5 days that we do leave without pay.
Right.
And then that's why we still able to maintain all the staff.
Okay.
And then also we have the good cooperation with our partners, that they reduce some cost for us. That's why we able to to maintain our staff.
That sounds great. There's a lot of the market does seem to be moving. The domestic market seems to be coming back. We're obviously waiting for the international market, and that's obviously going to come at the right time. But in terms of the domestic market, how much are you able to reopen your hotels on the strength of the domestic market? How much are you relying on it?
Okay, we are seeing that the hotels around Bangkok, within a few hours drive, that we see that there's a good demand, especially on the weekend. Okay, like in Pattaya, when we just reopened, right? We have about 80-90% occupancy. But this is just only the beginning. This is just only on the weekend. So we hope that for the weekdays we'll see a better occupancy.
So will you have more of a staggered opening? You'll be opening your properties within driving distance.
Yes.
That's really what you're going to be focusing on in the
right.
short term.
Because for the international destination, I think we have to wait until the country is open up, and we'll see demand from that.
Thank you. There's been a lot of disruptions in Thailand over the last decade, and the hotel industry has continued to grow. As Bill was talking about, the resilience of the industry is something really to be proud of. How do you think COVID-19 has been any different from the disruptions of the past?
We have never seen anything like this, right? I think everyone here said the same thing, right? This is not only the country, not the region, but it's a global situation. And then the problem is that we don't know when it's going to end. That's an issue. I think that's an issue.
Yeah.
But we have to cope with it. We have to work with it. We have to do something. But it will gradually, I think, until we get the vaccine, I believe.
Right. A lot of hoteliers are talking about cash flow. Mm-hmm. That they are whereas the hotels they're able to open hotels, legally able to open hotels. But they are concerned about the occupancies not being high enough to be able to actually open. Are you facing this as an issue?
We are the same. That the hotel has a cost, has a lot of fixed cost to it. So we run our projection to see what's level that we can open or comfortable open the hotels. That sometime that the less occupancy is not viable to open, so we have to stay close. And especially for those that are around Bangkok, I think it's okay. But for the international destination that need international tourist arrival, that would have to wait for quite some time.
Thank you. Today we're really focusing on Bangkok, and Bangkok is a huge hub destination and a huge meetings destination. How are you planning to? You said there was some recovery of your meetings business. It's really good to hear. How are you planning on continuing to drive that business in this new era? What is different in the meeting sector?
I think the key issue is hygiene and safety. All right, in any business that we're doing at the moment, hygiene and safety. How you can ensure that guests who are arriving at your property, at your destination, it's safe and have a good hygiene. What we're doing, that we partner with one of the biggest suppliers, like Ecolab, and also SGS, which is an international certified as hygiene and safety, that we work with that to ensure that when we have the guests at the hotel, that they are safe and sound,
Right.
And this is an issue. I think this is an issue for not only us, but also for everyone.
And through those partnerships, it would help perhaps increase the confidence of guests to come to stay with you again. So we talked quite a lot about domestic. What about the regional markets? There's been talk about China. It looks as though there's been a setback in Beijing. How do you view the Chinese market? It's such an important driving market for Thailand as a destination.
We know that Chinese it's account for 1/3, right, of the tourist arrival, so it's very important. And I believe that Chinese people love a destination like Thailand. We see that there, any surveys that Thailand, either Chiang Mai, Phuket, or Bangkok is top of the list of this. So it's very important. But how do we deal with it? How comfortable? This is something that I think this government thinks that government issue that has to work together. We talk about travel bubbles. Then yet again, we have people that favor of it. We have people not favor of it. So it's not an easy thing.
No, that's
It's
right.
not an easy
That's
thing.
right. Things are changing on almost a daily basis, aren't they?
Right.
Guntiriut, I would like to say thank you very much for joining TTF today. Ms. Pham, we're very grateful for your insights.
Thank you.
Right, I would like to turn now to Jesper Palmquist in Singapore. Jesper, I'm sure you've got some data for us, and we look forward to going through that by the numbers, deep into the early trends of market reopening. Jesper Palmquist, Area Director, Asia Pacific, STR. Jesper, please.
Thank you very much. Hopefully you can hear me okay. A thumbs up from someone on the panel. Beautiful.
Thumbs up. Excellent.
Thank you for everyone for joining today, and I hope you're all well. So my first point is that travel is coming back, right? As a reminder here, for every survey or opinion you hear, it's never just one thing, right? It's never just one story. It's often an agenda in one direction. It could be politicized or monetized. Take Bill's favorite country, US, for an example, right? Travel's back, beaches are loaded, road travel is growing. The past few weeks, we've been reporting submarkets doing really well, all while the country's in the middle of an historically epic political and ideological crisis and ever-increasing COVID caseloads. A bit of a problem. But those polarizing sides are playing a part here in Asia as well, but to a smaller degree. China's up to 60% of normal demand, doing really well after many months of going above. Large variations across ASEAN and Pacific, Australia and New Zealand starting to pick up domestic regionally, like Vietnam. But isn't it nice then to be able to talk about Thailand today? No new cases, curfew lifted, you can have a drink in a restaurant and make that a hotel restaurant, right? But I will get to our forecast, and the theme of that frame is the question, with what should you compare? And the importance of establishing a revised baseline and how you get there. So the quick backdrop is, we came into this is 3 years, and you look at the occupancy levels there by quarters. Those barns aren't screaming Ramones as in, hey ho, let's go. Mostly declines and not that insignificant. Factors like, supply and source market shifts have done that. Next slide will show you the rates, and it's kind of similar. So quarters over the last few years have been either flat or declining. So we reached a little bit of a peak and a high watermark level, and that was not 2019, which is what some people are saying at some times. So to continue this wonderfully uplifting start, we report on the numbers, and this is my neutral voice. For perspective, let's look at the darkest months we could find. It's always darkest before it's dawn, right? So 2003, 9, 10, and 14, we were down at 30, 40%, at least below 50. So when we sat there in January at 75, you obviously saw, and now we're at the lowest we've ever seen. And if you look at the curve there at the end, April down there, and we're single digits, what we're looking at for June, a slight increase from May as well, right? So it is obviously something that we haven't seen before in any market. And if we zoom in then on the last 45 days, just to have a closer look at that, we go, the last couple of weeks looks pretty good. We got an upwards trend. And then I show you the scale, and you're not interested anymore because it's really low and it's kind of disgusting. it is what it is for now. So we're more interested in looking for when it comes. So with the curfew opening up and everything going, we're super interested in the last 2 weeks of June and July, of course, right? So we'll see what happens. Now we get to the end of the short stick, the forecasting here on Bangkok. It will take time, a lot of time. So even if you can't compare everything with GFC, you can apply the method of similar logic, and given the gravity of the current situation, just consider that it took 4 years to recover pre-GFC occupancy, 10 years for ADR with all the supply and other factors. And this crisis cut a deeper wound than ever before. So all of you who've become really good at math because you had kids during lockdown and you did online learning, very easy for you. It sets up the rationale for my forecast. If you had 78% for occupancy, annualized basis, you had that, and you drop 46%. You'll land at 42%, okay? Hopefully you're with me, Eric as well. But then by next year, in 2021, you grow by 40%. That's a lot, that's a big increase, 40%. What does that leave you? Below 60%. So just by very simple math, it's a far cry from the 78%, and that comeback spurt of 40%, that's the biggest you will see, and then it goes slow from there. So bear that in mind as I show you this. We plot out 2019 and a little bit of the growth and the dip we saw. Now, our forecast, if it continues to hope with the recovery, you know, with medical and business coming in the way we see it now, will be nice uplift this year, but then it starts going flattish in 2021 and continues into 22 and onwards. Where does it leave you? Well, a lot lower when we started. So hopefully that's clear, Len. And I think I want to be very clear because it sounds harsh when I say 2019 levels, we're not going to see them in 5 years from now. Now, if you disagree with our methodology and our outcome, that's great, especially if you're more optimistic. I hope it is, but I feel we're realistic. And that's also why we believe it's more important to reframe the conversation. So don't say, when will I have 2019 levels again? Instead, look at, when will I have these levels that are fair and reasonable for the owner and operator to agree, and how the hell will I get there? That's more interesting than comparing to when do I see 2019? So where does it leave us? Occupancy is very likely to come back before ADR. Happened before, happened in most markets. I would see it in Bangkok as well. Domestic business is what it is, and other speakers today will talk more about how big that is and what it is. It is limited. Thailand needs the inbound flights, short and long haul, which means that it has potential for rate wars and discounting. Absolutely. Just putting it out there. Flights, right? Will airlines be back to normal regional demand at one stage? The eminent Charlie Blocker will talk about this straight after me, so you get about the flights as well. But the confidence is not there yet for flights into from long haul. December, January, marginal surge, minimal bookings going on. And it's the same with the business on the books for hotels. Marginal, nothing really to write home about. Which hotel kind will reboot faster? Big question, we get it often, depends on markets. And you can argue, because they emerge differently. You have tighter belts, less wealth on the horizon coming out. First, I mean, it's an occupancy challenge game moving forward. So if you have a high ADR property, I suppose you could say, I will hit the stride earlier. I control my costs. I just need a little bit of occupancy on demand coming. But economy and mid-scale, particularly select service, who has tightened the belt, has so far, in those countries that are out of it, come out faster. Because, you know, fewer tourists, it works well domestically, no F&B to consider. So, and we have to remember that there is a pipeline for Thailand, there is a pipeline for Bangkok that we talked about in January, we talked about before. There are delays all over the world, 3 to 6 months on average, some deferred projects, but a lot of it will still happen. So that will continue to put pressure on next year as well. So more good news. So what is it that we really need? I mean, there's a lot of action items that people can take. And what the learnings from the last 2 to 3 months in this region and in Bangkok, you see properties that have been more aggressive in marketing, that have been more innovative in doing things, having the operational skills and good owner relationships to keep going. Use the creativity, preferably deep pockets, but not everyone has that, right? So I think for me, Bangkok needs to take charge and lead by example, because this is Bangkok, right? It's an amazing market, an amazing city. Use it for domestic, use it for the travel bridges. Step up with those learnings and show not just Thailand, but around the whole region, how to drive sales. And, you know, there is absolutely an opportunity for Bangkok to come back with a vengeance because of the amazing market it is. I think it will, and it's just about the timing. It will take a lot longer than people think. But that's it for me. Let me know for any questions. You can back to us when you have the slides later. Thank you very much, guys.
Yes, but thank you. We're going to move on to aviation now. Charles Blocker, CEO, IC Partners Limited. Charlie's going to talk about return of international flights, certifications, quarantines, and reciprocity. Charlie, welcome. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. This is probably the most important topic because of our 150 hotel, service department, airline, hospitals, everybody is focused on when the international tourist, business person is going, or patient is going to return. So I would submit to you, it is very important. We're going to look at what that foreign arrival process and guidelines could look like on July 1. Although if you caught the front page of the Bangkok Post today, it could be later than July 1, but that's the last information. We're going to talk a little bit about these travel bubbles you've been hearing about, green lanes, as Singapore uses that term. What are some of the stages and challenges that we'll anticipate? And then really some structural changes that are taking place in aviation and how it will serve the kingdom. Thank you, Simi. Yeah, so just who are all, you see all these different ministries. Ultimately, the cabinet here in Thailand will make the final call. Hopefully that will be before June 30th and not on the eve of June 30th for anything that would be impacted on July 1. But you can see these various ministries from, of course, tourism and sports, and we're in communication with a lot of these, the chambers, the business community, the various stakeholders, partners, but really it's the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration, also known as the CCSA. They are really the ones who are gathering all this information and synthesizing it to hopefully bring some clarity. Thank you, Simi. So what does the foreign arrival process look like now, and what could it look like? Again, I want to emphasize nothing has been confirmed or clarified. This is from the latest interviews as of late last night and other just various sources. On the left, you can see if you want to come as a business person today, you can do that. You need to have a work permit and you need to have evidence of $100,000 worth of health insurance that includes COVID. And then you can see the other line items. At the very bottom, you'll see that rather challenging 14-day quarantine and in a government approved facility at your expense. Where we hope to be, or where we could be on July 1, is that the stage 1 will focus on business people and patients coming for medical treatment. You'll note down on item 4, one of the things that could be a challenge, or it's just not fully defined, is the actual COVID test screening when you leave a country and when you come into Thailand. So that's 2 tests. The clarity on when you leave the country, I don't know if that's whether you're leaving your actual, say, the United States and transiting through Hong Kong or through Tokyo. That is not clear yet, but it is another layer of testing and expense. But the real important one there at the bottom is the absence of a 14-day quarantine. This should be approved. Thank you. The other thing that we've read that's floating around out there is that possibly or probably here before your pre-arrival, you will make some type of an application for the what's called the digital health passport application. This is still being defined, but it will enable you to communicate with the Royal Thai government. Of course, there's some, they'll track what tests you've had, maybe even trace where you are. It is designed to have safety as we take these baby steps early on in the day. Please, next one. So what are travel bubbles, or these green lanes? They've even taken on the mantle of tourism bubbles. But let me emphasize that tourism is not yet coming. It's really emphasis is on business. Business and patients, people seeking healthcare, which is particularly attractive because usually, according to our hospital members, usually a patient will travel with 2.8 people and they'll stay an average length of about 11 to 12 days. So that's quite desirable and good. But look at this list in front of you. Only 1,000 foreign visitors per day initially. That's for the whole country. That's 2.5, not even, it's probably, 2.5 777s or 747s. So quite challenging. The other thing that we'll be looking at in these bubbles is indeed the, what's called the SHA. This is the Safety Health Administration. It's under the TAT, but wherever you go in your sub bubble, whatever the destinations are, we'll talk about those in a minute. This is the sort of the seal, and that there's a process that deals with social distancing, the things we're all doing, mask shields, hand washing, and just watching the densities. Hopefully, as you can see, stage 2 is something that could be visited perhaps later this quarter. Moving on, the list of actual countries that are most noted as being safe, even with the news from China, is, but we have Malaysia, Vietnam, Taiwan, South Korea, and of course China, but there are going to be sub bubbles or sub cities within those. Also, you can see on the right, these are the other countries that are identified as ones that would be the corridors. These are our primary markets. Remember, these are bilateral cooperative agreements. These concepts have been coming about in Asia Pacific for at least 60 days. Everyone has to cooperate. On domestic airlift, connectivity is important upon an international arrival. About 22 of the existing airports in Thailand are open. That's almost 60%. Of those, the capacity is only running at 50% of normal flights, and of that, utilization on those discrete aircraft is really less than 30%, 25 to 30%, please. And you can see the major carriers are the low-cost carriers. Smile. A couple that we need to keep our eye on in the industry is what's going to happen with Thai Airways. It has gone, or it's in the process of going through a restructuring. Its assets barely exceed its liabilities, and it does carry nearly 40% of the country's traffic. AirAsia last month announced their intention to look at mergers. This is trigger for some consolidation. Next, please. Okay, so really when we step back and we think about aviation and how it serves Thailand, because we need to have these international arrivals as soon as possible and as safely as possible, but there are really, I guess, 4 quadrants here. You've got, of course, the private jet service, and you can see some of the names there that I think that is protected. That business is thriving. Has done well, and it will continue to do well. It's really the legacy carriers there, where some of them have actually gone on for a number of years with lean operations, but now they're recapitalizing. And the low-cost carriers, I think, will see some consolidation. And the charters, who knows? I think there's still monies owed from a number of the charters out of Europe here to the country of Thailand. So I'll turn that back to you.
Charlie, thank you. Thank you. Very insightful. You can't stay there if you can't get there. Aviation is obviously a totally critical component here. We're going to move to an equally critical component, which is distribution and love amongst the ruins, operator and OTA relations, and the future of distribution. Today we're going to welcome Robert Hecker, Managing Director, Asia Pacific of Hotelworks, based in Singapore, Mark Flower, VP Commercial, Southeast Asia and Korea, IHG Hotels and Resorts, and Tim Hughes, VP Business Development of Agoda. Can I hand it over to you, please, Robert?
Thank you very much. So pleased to be here with my 2 guests, Mark and Tim. And actually, first thing I was going to say is that when I came up with the title for this session, Love Among the Ruins, I was actually intending to be facetious, but after talking with you guys yesterday, it seems like there's actually quite a lot of love in the room.
Oh yeah, we're all in this together. We are all in this together.
So
absolutely, Robert. Absolutely, Tim.
It's a synergistic relationship now, but I think what you did say is that if you were to compare it to, say, 5 years ago, it's gotten an even closer relationship. You would agree with that?
Absolutely. The relationship has got a lot stronger over the years, and we talk about consumer behaviors. If we look at the bookings coming in from markets that have already opened up, like Korea and Vietnam, and we're obviously going to be talking about Thailand as well, it's absolutely mobile app, it's direct, it's loyalty, and it's OTAs. Those are the key markets, and the lead times are incredibly short that are coming in. You're not seeing much business coming through leisure groups, central reservation offices, GDS, or wholesale, or MICE, whether it's international or domestic at the moment. So absolutely, relationships with the likes of Tim are key.
Yeah, and from our side, as technologically and as advanced as the OTA business has, our biggest team is still the people who need to talk to customers, be the customers on one side that are booking or the customers on the other side who own the properties. So this is a relationship-driven business for sure.
Yeah, and the before, let's say pre-COVID and post or mid-COVID, if we are, the changes that you've seen, basically you were summing up that it's basically all gone digital. It's 100% online bookings.
Yeah, Robert, it's interesting. I mentioned something yesterday. It was something that will make people smile. Is if you look at our consumer behavior in the last 3 or 4 months, and I'll just give a typical day. I'm at home. My kids are in their bedrooms doing online learning. We're at a fantastic tourism forum in Thailand with over 1,500 people here. We're online working. I'm educating my parents how to buy food online. When you talk about that over a 3-month period, it takes 2 months before a new behavior becomes a habit. And I firmly believe that we are seeing an element of transition to either more and different generations going online to book their future travel.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We are in a digitization boot camp right now. We are all being trained to figure out how to use and interact with the world in a digital format, and that is driving people to online purchases in every single category.
And are you thinking that this is going to be a long-term trend, or is it more of an interim, temporary, and people will go back to their ways, or is this a permanent shift?
History tells us that people don't go back to their ways. I'll share one data point with you. You know, we started this business, the pre-COVID, with about 70% of our transactions being mobile, and we're now doing about 79. So that's not even just digitized; that is on the phone. That's the most dramatic shift we've seen in a distribution channel in any area of Agoda's time, and that has come from the digitization boot camp that COVID has put humanity through.
Yeah, very, very similar to Tim. Mobile app has shown the mix has shown significant increases, the direct and the loyalty as well, and OTAs. The other markets, segments we talked about earlier, unfortunately not there.
Yeah.
And I guess, Mark, you would have more of the view coming from the hotel side, but in terms of that sort of online or digital booking, the percentage between OTAs and direct through your systems, is that changed in terms of, are you getting more through direct now or more through OTA?
No, it hasn't changed hugely. And it also depends on the country as well. The prominence of the brands from the international hotelier and the OTAs. So not a huge amount of change. It's just the mix has just gone up hugely. So you've seen that drop in the wholesale or the central res or the groups, that key base business that we always have in Thailand of leisure groups. It's not there anymore. People are not traveling in groups. It's coming through the transit.
Yeah.
And I know on Thailand specific, things are definitely revving up on the domestic tourism side or domestic travel, but and I understand there's going to be an impending campaign starting Monday or starting sooner than that.
Talking to Tim or myself.
Well, we're working on it together, so I suppose the answer is both of us.
Yes, absolutely.
Building on Jesper's data, I'm calling this period the beginning of the recovery. And we've all got a little bit of hope involved. That something doesn't go wrong, and we're certainly not in a space we can say we've recovered. And I don't even know if we're at the beginning, but we're certainly the beginning of the beginning. And all the evidence we see is that beginning of the beginning is a domestic-led recovery. And we can look at that by seeing countries that are a little bit further to the left-hand side, like Taiwan and Korea, who've emerged a little bit earlier than Bangkok has, than Thailand has, and 96% of that business in those two countries is domestic. And in the case of Korea and Taiwan, both of them are growing year on year, positive business year on year, led by domestic. And so this beginning of the beginning, we have to just accept has got to be it's a domestic-led recovery.
And I suppose now is probably a good timing in terms of school holidays, right? For Thailand.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're going to learn. I mean, we're going to learn things from the markets. We talk about other markets. It's great to see in Vietnam with Phu Quoc and Da Nang and Nha Trang, the domestic substantially up. And I'm excited about Thailand. We say you don't see a huge amount of domestic in Phuket, but I'm excited to see what will happen. We are seeing those planes fly domestically in Vietnam, and I'm excited to see that happen, not just for Hua Hin, where we've seen huge growth already, which was mentioned earlier. You're going to see that in Pattaya over the next couple of weeks, but Chiang Mai, Phuket, Samui and Krabi. And back to your point, Tim, taking that on board, we are doing a campaign next week for the most domestic for all 30 properties in Thailand, where we are going to offer up to 50% off our pricing with free breakfast. And the great thing about it and how the market has changed is that's directly connected to our OTA partners like Tim. So they have access to those rates by the 2nd. So that launches next week.
Anyone who can show their registration for watching this webinar gets an extra 10% off. Is that right?
For sure.
Absolutely.
Call me personally. I'll list my phone number afterwards.
If they're an IHG loyalty member, 100%.
And the
and to that point too about I mean, transport's a factor here, which is why the drive market, as the CEO of Centara mentioned, the drive market. You know, first 2 weeks of June, Hua Hin, Khao Yai, Kanchanaburi. This is the places we were seeing growth as those people in Bangkok finally got to get out of their homes and desperate to see something other than four walls. We're desperate to go on holidays.
And like for instance, this weekend, what would you be seeing in these kind of drive-to destinations? Are we talking about full houses?
Well, we're certainly seeing year-on-year growth. You know, I leave it to the ESPA and the experts on that side to talk about the occupancy. But we are seeing not just growth week on week, but actual year-on-year growth in the business.
Yeah, 100% agree. Hua Hin, which is obviously the first market to open, you're seeing 70, 80, 90% occupancies. Obviously, not all properties are open in that destination yet, as mentioned earlier. You're going to see that in Pattaya as well. So we're going to see some interesting new destinations crop up domestically. Just give an example, Sanya is the #1 destination for China. It's no longer. There are other destinations in China that have opened up. Same for Vietnam, and I'm sure we're going to see the same in Thailand.
Yeah.
Where is Bangkok going to fit into all this? What do you think? Can you give them any hope?
I think, look, obviously the corridors are going to be absolutely key. There will be some demand for staycation in the market, but we are seeing globally in every market that's opening up, US, Vietnam, China, Korea, it's the coastal locations. It's those locations 2 to 3 hours away out of a key city by train or by car, or domestic flights up to 1.5 hours, 2 hours away.
Yeah, we can't, I agree totally, but we can't sugarcoat it. You know, again, places like Taiwan and Korea that have come out earlier, Taipei and Seoul have not enjoyed the full fruits of this recovery. But it doesn't mean it's all bad news. It means you've got to be creative though, because the consumers are looking for relaxation. They're looking for escape. They're looking to get out of their house. Maybe they're looking for small groups in family size or friend size. It's about creating experimentation in packages and room opportunities to buck the trend of consumers wanting to get out of Bangkok.
Yeah, and I think as a maybe a closing comment, I suppose, is that you got to think about that, but you also got to think about how to do it digitally, right? Reaching the customer now seems to be through these digital channels.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And they've not just said that. The customers said that we want to be digital. We need a deal, and we need flexibility. We need to be able to be, and we need a short lead time. There's a bunch of things they're telling us. We have to work together on those.
And the key to that, Robert, is exactly as Tim said, digital. So if you're opening tomorrow, you probably haven't had much time to get ready to be open. So it's digital that's going to give that availability to the rates to the whole of Thailand immediately.
Okay, well, I know, I think, Tim, you're not going to be able to stick around, but there's Q&A later, and I'm sure you're going to get some follow-up questions. But, that's all we got time for now, so thank you both.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Stay safe, everyone.
All right.
Robert, Tim, Mark, thanks very much for that. It's fascinating to hear about the acceleration of digital as really being the key driving force when it comes to distribution. We're going to move over to investment next. Buy, sell, hold, investment trends, cap rates, and shifting values from ground zero. We have Nihat Khan, who's the MD, Head of Investment Sales Asia, JLL Hotels and Hospitality Group. Nihat, please.
Great, thanks very much, and it's a real pleasure to be here talking to you on Zoom. Okay, we just start with the slides, Sumi. Right, Sumi, are you able to share the slides?
It's showing, Nihat.
That screen shares, Nihat.
Okay, great. All right, so before diving into the main topic of the webinar, I wanted to bring into context the transactions environment just prior to the outbreak. As you can see, 2019 was the highest year for sales on record in our region. We recorded close to $14 billion of hotel sales, and that represented around a 60% growth from the prior year. The APAC trend was actually in quite a bit of a strong contrast to EMEA, where Brexit uncertainty led to flatlining of volume. And in the Americas, we actually saw a decline as late cycle activity slowed down, and there were also less portfolio sales. Go to the next slide. Looking into the region in a little bit more detail, essentially last year we saw record volumes in pretty much all the markets, with liquidity led by Japan, Singapore, and China. There were a number of large one-off single asset sales that really helped drive a lot of that activity. Examples of these included the Westin Tokyo, the Andaz in Singapore for $350 million, the Grand Hyatt Seoul for over $400 million, and two key sales in the Maldives that traded for just over $350 million. Now, Thailand was a bit of an outlier in that. Overall volume was down last year, and this was in part due to sales moderating after record transactions in 2017 and 18, including several in Bangkok. And also because a number of trades that were expected to close in 2019 spilled over into 2020. So at the regional level, we saw demand that was fueled across all buyer categories as record levels of investment were made in Asia Pacific. And private equity was really the dominant capital, followed by high net worth buyers. And we finished 2019 not only with record sales, but also strong investor sentiment and an overall positive tourism outlook for the region. But unfortunately, the music stopped there. Now, our original forecast for 2020 was $10 billion of sales for Asia Pacific. This would have represented, I would say, a respectable amount against historical averages and shown a moderation as we came off a record 2019, with the possibility that some economic and political headwinds could have influenced how investors underwrite their investments, specifically around cap rate movements and market expectations going forward. However, against the COVID backdrop, in the year-to-date May, we've seen volumes fall by more than 60% to 1.8 billion. And based on current pace, we expect 2020 to finish at around $4 billion. This would represent around a decline of 60% against our original forecast and a year-on-year decline of more than 70% against the prior year peak. It's also on par with 2008 and 2009, when we saw 3.6 to 3.9 billion of sales following the global financial crisis. So let's talk about the industry house view. What's the lie of the land now? And I think it's fair to say we're still in very much the eye of the storm, but this is what we're currently seeing. As borders are shut and both domestic and inbound demand are heavily impacted, I think it's no surprise that double-digit RevPAR declines across the region are the norm and continue to present a real challenge to recovery. Based on early signs, it's clear that domestic demand and drive to destinations will lead the resurgence. But the markets that had a supply and demand imbalance and which were already feeling the pressure prior to COVID will feel a sharper impact and a quicker buildup of stress. And there was a question earlier in the Q&A about the stress, and this is exactly where we anticipate some of that distress to come from. The silver lining, I think, is that the supply pipeline will decline as some projects are put on hold and some are considered for alternative use. And I think this is going to give some much needed breathing space to owners. From a pricing perspective, there is at the moment very little market evidence. And I would say that buyers and sellers are very much in a discovery phase. I think it's safe to say that there is generally right now a bit of a disconnect with owners holding out on values to the extent that they can, whilst buyers are on the lookout for deep correction. For now, owners are very focused on disciplined cash flow management. And in Bangkok, of course, this includes tapping into government subsidies where available, for instance, for wage support, and in particular, reliance on the strength of existing banking relationships to procure much needed working capital injections and moratoriums on payments. Now, overall, the recovery scenario looks a lot more prolonged than our original anticipation of a swift V-shaped recovery. Generally, we expect the road ahead to look likely to take anywhere between 12 to 36 months from when green shoots of recovery take place. And we think green shoots will happen towards the end of this year. And that's going to really depend on each market's characteristics. So taking into consideration the domestic base for Bangkok, we believe the recovery in Bangkok will take around 18 months, and not to the 2019 peak, as Jesper mentioned, but to a realistic and sustainable level of profitability. And in the ensuing time period, private equity does see a cyclical opportunity to invest into the sector at attractive prices at the start of a new cycle. Similarly, high net worth buyers are anticipating the same, and they're holding on to significant cash reserves. Now, both buyer categories are not active just yet, but they are proactively monitoring, and they will be ready to put some of that dry powder to use soon. So I think in closing, what does this all mean for values in Bangkok? To start with, I want to caveat by saying that the analysis that we've done is mathematical in nature. So please do not boo the messenger. What we have done is to conduct a Monte Carlo simulation where we looked at the potential path of cash flow recovery post-COVID and possible movements in cap rates based on real-time investor feedback and by referencing cap rate movements during prior crises. We then ran the simulation 10,000 times, resulting in possible value declines, illustrated through a probability distribution. Now, I would stress that this is only a forecasting tool, providing a view on a range of potential outcomes, but it does not take into consideration specific asset qualities, as well as emotive or strategic investment needs of buyers, nor the level of stress in a vendor, all of which could influence the final outcome between a willing seller and a willing buyer. That said, assuming a recovery was to take place no less than 12 months and cap rates moved by 50 basis points, the correction in pricing relative to 2019 would be by 10 to 15%. If the recovery was to take longer, say 18 months, and with a cap rate expansion of 75 bips, pricing movement could be in the order of 20%. And for Bangkok, some 60% of the total value change is due to the cap rate movement, and 40%, I would say, is due to lower profit earnings in the initial years of recovery. I think ultimately Bangkok tends to feature very heavily on investors' radar, and the low levels of historic liquidity in the market do help create a bit of a pent-up level of demand that have compressed cap rates and elevated prices. So with the right strategic opportunity coming to the market, it's arguable that a willing buyer could be prepared to accept lower initial yields. And we saw this in some instances following prior demand shocks in Thailand. And therefore, it's possible that the proportion of the value correction could well be mitigated. Thanks for listening, and I hope that was helpful. I'd be happy to answer any questions later on.
Thank you, Nihad Akam, JLL. It's absolutely fascinating, and please do stick around because there's been a number of questions for you that have come through. Okay, we're moving on. We're moving on to brand. We're moving on to marketing. We're moving on specifically to the domestic market. David Keane, CEO of Quo, is going to talk to us about Bang the Drum, 2020's domesticated hospitality consumer. David, please.
Thank you, David. And thank you everyone for listening. And thank you to all of my previous speakers and to Bill and Sumi and everyone for organizing this extraordinary forum. I think the content's been fantastic. It's quite extraordinary how much change there is and how all of us in the hotel industry are seeing that the change is probably irreversible. And it was interesting that our speakers from Agoda and IHG with Robert were recognizing that habit is becoming, that habits are being formed and that change is in fact irreversible. What we're going to show, we've done a survey ourselves at Quo to figure out what domestic tourists, what we believe domestic tourists are going to do. We've gone to the domestic market and taken a decent sized sample from the market, and we've also gone to hotels and asked the hotel general managers what they expect. There is some disparity. Some quick background. If you look at amounts of visits to cities in Thailand up to April this year, there was a drop of 99.3% in visits to city visits across Thailand in 2020 because of the virus. In May, it was down 97%. The numbers, as Jesper was talking about, as Nihat's talking, as we're all saying, are shocking. Obviously from 2018 and 2019, you can see on the right-hand side that there's between 40 and 41 million visits to other cities around, to Bangkok. Sorry, if you just drop back. Thanks, Sumi. There is a fairly equal distribution across the north and the south of the country and the central parts of the country for other cities. I won't go into too much detail because the meat is later on. Next slide. So, but what are the facts? What are people looking for? So the survey details, if you go to the next slide. So we went to a cross-section of the market of travelers between the ages of 20 and 60, who were located in different locations. We went to hotel general managers from Bangkok, Phuket, Samui, Pattaya, Krabi, and Chiang Mai, and we were looking at both hotels and resort properties. What do the papers say? Everyone's talking about this great return through domestic travel. Is it true? Go on. So yes, it's true to say that there is a pent-up demand for domestic travel, and as the other speakers have said, we've seen that already in Hue Hin and Pattaya and Khao Yai and other places close to Bangkok. What the travelers are saying, the hoteliers are expecting the travelers to return by Q3. What the travelers are saying is the majority are looking to return by Q4. So there is a disparity in expectation where the hotels are expecting the travelers to come back sooner. The travelers themselves are looking at coming back slightly later. There is a spike in hotel searches, as you can see on the left-hand side, but the major spike looking for destination and looking to book is in November. It's not that much before November. So we've still got, unfortunately, a long way to go. As everyone has said, and we won't dwell on this, most people want to travel by car. They feel safer by car, and there's versus pre and post COVID, there's a pretty much equal desire to travel by plane. Where do they want to go? Predominantly, we're seeing that travelers want to go to resorts. Again, as everyone's saying, and as we've all said, the outlook, the prognosis for Bangkok and for Chiang Mai and for other cities in Thailand is not that great. 65% of travelers want to go to the beach. They want to get out, and only 16%, which is a drop from 35% that want to visit cities. Mountains are, or getting out to the mountains is also slightly higher. Where are they going to go? The majority of 46% will go to the central part of the country. Good news for the south. Good news for Krabi, Samui, Phuket. 33% are looking to visit the south, which obviously means that they're more likely to fly. But that in fact is clearly good news. There's a rise, and this is not a surprise to us from a branding point of view. There's a security and international brand, and more travelers will stay in international brands than before the crisis, and more travelers are looking to stay in local brands. Interestingly, a lot of people were talking about vacation rentals being in demand. We're not seeing that from this survey. And independent hotels are losing after the crisis. We're looking at independent, more perhaps less known, less secure, or perceived as being less secure, will have to do stronger marketing. And if you can go on to, so what we're saying is that 78% there then of the 78% are believing in the brand's reputation and values, and those are the hotels that people are looking to choose. No surprise on this chart, people are looking for hygiene. I think it's over 55% of travelers have ranked health and hygiene and safety of their family as their top concerns. And this is also very interesting. People are feeling less comfortable. I mean, it's maybe antithetical to what I was just saying, but people are feeling less comfortable flying than they were than they were before the crisis, and they're certainly equally less comfortable staying in vacation rentals. What are the tactics that what the majority of tactics and strategies here, and where they differ for hotels and resorts? What's extremely interesting is we're seeing that 70% of hotels are looking at digital and a digital strategy, and over 70% are looking at staff training. In the resort sector, we're not seeing that. So given that there's a majority of people that want to go to resorts and are looking to go to resorts, there's clearly a need to up your digital and technology, your strategy for attracting visitors, and particularly as we were listening to the IHG and Agoda guys, to be able to book directly and to be able to book through through some sort of mobile device. Travel intent is growing. To finalize, travel intent is certainly growing. There's no question about that. We've got a long way to go. It's not gonna happen overnight. Where, as we were saying, it's the beginning of the beginning. I think that's fair. I think that's fair to say. But it's not going to be until in September or October where we're going to have even more clarity and be able to see strong green shoots and a more positive outcome. I wish you all to be well. Thank you.
Thank you, David. David Keane, CEO of Quo, some great insights there for the domestic market. The domestic market is really where the recovery is beginning, but it's not going to be a fast and furious recovery, that's for sure. Thank you, David. We've got a little bit of musical chairs here in Rosewood, Bangkok, and I'm absolutely delighted to invite you to introduce you to Leanne Reddy. Leanne is the Director of Sales and Marketing of Rosewood, Bangkok, and she's going to talk about doors wide open. We're obviously open here, a Bangkok hotel sales and marketing restarter. Leanne, welcome.
Thank you so much, David. And we're delighted to have the entire team for TTF Bangkok here today at Rosewood, Bangkok, because we only opened 2 days ago. So it's been such a whirlwind. And in the last 12 months, I've been part of an incredible team that have launched, opened, closed, and now reopened the same hotel in 12 months. So what a ride it has been. And whilst the horizons have never been as clear across the Bangkok skyline, the outlook is confusing. And as all of our panelists have shared, it's frustrating and incredibly challenging. But we are very challenging times. However, in this is so much opportunity. And what I hope to support you here today as we drive Destination Bangkok is some tips on restarting, and with the full pack being delivered at the end of this call. So I realized earlier this year at the Thailand Tourism Forum, we were running a one-size-fits-all approach. In January, I presented to you the Leanne map, and I used the data from the Thailand Tourism, Airports and Industry reports to remap out the world and where the traveler to Thailand was coming from. Now, 6 months later, who would have thought we'd be sitting here today? And being in the midst of COVID, that map doesn't actually change that much. The difference is you're being given a new map for the time being. And I was really hoping that today's presentation, the travel bubble would be clearer. The only thing clearer is I'm now legally able to drink champagne bubbles in our Nambe restaurant bar. So it's certainly challenging times, and this travel bubble will hopefully be expecting announcements soon. But what I am showing you on the screen is the travel map, what I feel from the information that has been announced so far and gleaned from, that we will have opportunities within 7 hours flying time of Bangkok. The borders may be open and quarantine rules would drive the demand, but Bangkok is in the heart of it. And we should never forget that we once were the world's most visited city. So how's something I can define for you? Every country is a bubble, and it's a future customer for you. Define it and understand who your customer is. The customer profile hasn't changed that dramatically. We do not need to complicate it. Simply run the exercise of understanding who the customer is for your hotel or property. That's the opportunity. Understand there needs to be a different strategy for every market. Every bubble represents an opportunity. Use it. Now add in what your competitors do. We'll all be honest and be constructive. And what do you do well? This will be your USP. Your unique selling point will be your differentiator right now. The clear communication consistently across all of your touch points of distribution, social media, your website, and your communications plan is now key. You have all an amazing opportunity to look at your product and how your product is perceived with fresh eyes. You've never had this chance. Do not waste it. For the benefit of the entire destination, do not lose the chance to create a fresh narrative. But that fresh narrative is something that we haven't had to do before. And I know it's challenging, but something I said at TTF in January still rings true. You are all memory creators, and the time to create amazing memories is now. The difference is with the SHA seal of approval. Because if we have all learned nothing else from COVID, is the commitment to care, safety, and hygiene is what is critical to drive confidence. Thailand is well positioned to do this. If you haven't already completed your SHA certification, get onto it now. We'll be keeping you with the link after this call, because already Expedia has given you the market awareness that they will profile your property with an SHA seal of approval. And now I want you to all go and Google yourself. The journey of COVID has been hard to sort the fact from the noise. Your venues were temporarily closed by Google. Please make this opportunity to review every single business that you have and ensure that it's not temporarily closed if it's actually open. I can't tell you how many places I've been in Bangkok recently where I had to actually understand whether or not the place was open because on Google it said it was closed. Don't miss the sale just by updating Google My Business. So as I said in January, long live luxury 2.0. Bangkok needs to rise above the clutter. We're not only competing against each other, we're competing against the world. And we are all in the business of luxury because luxury is how you spend your time. Make sure the guests that start to spend time with you, spend it with great memory creation. I wish you the greatest success as we embark on this recovery and the restart of our journey together. And I wish you all a hopefully successful 2020. Thank you.
Leanne, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you so much also for having us here at Rosewood Bangkok. It's really great to be here. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on. We're heading down to Singapore and we're with Eric. Eric Levy, please. Eric, Managing Director, Tourism Solutions International, or TSI. Eric, operators and lenders, got the fever or chill?
Yeah, Leanne, I'll tell you for sure, one size does not fit all. What we're going to do in this session is we talk with leaders of the industry, owners and operators and lenders as well, to determine if they're feeling well, chilled, or whether they're fever or sick. And I put Kirsten first because she was the most granular. And what she said was interesting. She said, if we go back, Sumi, what she said is that she thinks that some of the new brands that have come out may go away, that they may disappear. Slide. The CEO of a global hotel company, we leave him anonymous so he remains with a job, perhaps. Owners and operators have to face the hard realities and walk in each other's shoes. There's no silver bullet to our recovery. It's going to be a tough one. Slide. Tony South muses, do we ever learn? And really what he's talking about, a couple things. Cash reserves, like we do at home. Did we have a buffer in our business? He questions whether that's the case. And have we kept powder dry so we can talk with Nihat and make some new investments? Craig Smith, the group president for Asia Pacific at Marriott, talks about safety and hygiene as the new amenity. It's the new bar of soap. Not necessarily why you'll go to a hotel, that remains largely the same, but something that you need and expect in every hotel. Slide. Kevin Bouvet, CEO of Glow Hotels based in Bangkok. He says size and flexibility matters. Adaptability will be the key in moving forward during these ever-changing times. A loan origination officer at a large Thai bank prefers to remain anonymous. Points out that lenders are definitely going to be more stringent underwriting loans with tight lending terms going forward. Loans for clients for greenfields development, very scarce for the next year. I thought I'd talk to a lawyer. Bad idea. Look at the length of this quote. And then he ends it with, I'm happy to expound. Slide. Slide. That was Ben Hirasawa, who has an, if we go back, who's started a new law firm, Ben Hirasawa Hospitality International, with an office in Bangkok. Interesting perspective from Ben. He thinks the impacts from COVID-19, it's going to enable those sharp and savvy negotiators to think back on how their counterparties positioned things and made arguments and use those in negotiations going forward. So think back and think hard on that one or give them a ring. Next slide. Alan Watts, President Asia Pacific for Hilton. He points out the obvious. Most devastating event to hit our industry in a generation, easily. As we navigate our way back to demand, will this force our industry, which is fragmented, to work as one to lobby and accelerate cross-border demand, or will it simply be an individual test of management skill and asset stewardship to survive, with some investors waiting in the wings to capitalize on others' misfortune? Very large owner in Thailand, uses third-party management companies. This guy was very frustrated, even angry. He gave me 10 quotes. This is the one I pulled. And I think it's important. I think someone alluded to it earlier on recovery. One size is not likely to fit all. And operators should be discussing these with owners and get their buy-in now, knowing things will change. Slide. Gavin Fall, chairman of Swisswell Hotels, says governments must realize that we must manage and control and not stop tourism. He points out that tourism does not work from home, and then he ends it on a positive note. Slide. Patrick Imbardelli, he says rather than using the sell technique, don't try to sell. Ask your counterparty what their issue is, and then make sure you listen to what the answer is. A loan origination officer. This is a global bank, very active in the hotel lending industry. Many of you work with this bank. So it's amazing. In month 1 of the major impact, a borrower comes into my office and asks for a moratorium for a full year. And this fellow thought there should be some sharing of burden, especially as 2 months were already in the rear view mirror. I will remember this. So dealing with your lenders, remember they do have memories. So I think you've got it from everyone's talk, but our industry is ill, very, very ill. But everyone is looking positive at green shoots and recovery, and feels very confident that people will travel once again. So it's time to pack up the car, drive up to Khao Yai, go visit Grand Monte Vineyards, try some of the rosé. It's really good. Thank you.
Excellent. Eric Levy, thank you very much from Singapore. Right, we're back in Bangkok, and we're with Nikom Jen Siri Ratanakorn, Director Thailand, Hotelworks. Analyze this, a financial primer for Bangkok hotel owners.
Thank you, David.
Thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon to everyone, wherever you are. I hope you still awake and stay focused, because we are talking about real money and not just making a good decision, but making the right decision. As Bangkok, the city of Angel, is coming back to life and a curfew has been lifted, one of the most critical questions to hotel owners is when to actually reopen a hotel property and how to make a successful comeback. We're using real statistics from our Huawei HTL database to demonstrate analytical procedures and come up with some benchmark examples to support the reopening lessons. The data is collected through our annual survey of hotel operations in collaboration with many parties, hotel association, hospitality groups, hotel owners. Next, please. Before we get down to the tools and procedures, it's good to just take a step back and try to understand the real reason why preparation and planning are so important to the reopening. Opening your hotel means you start burning resources again. And if business is not picking up strong and fast enough, you will end up losing even more money. However, if you are too conservative, your competitors may have the first mover advantage and take all the businesses who may not return to you. Your staff will also need to earn a living, and they may move to join one of the competitor firms if you remain closed. To have the best results from the planning, we all got to understand that the analysis is a work in process, especially in a time like this. So every owner needs to monitor the situation closely and also keep updating the plan on a regular basis. One of the common tools for hotel opening is break-even analysis. This is basically a minimum performance threshold, and beyond this point, your hotel will start making money from operation. Simply, at break-even, your hotel revenues equal to all costs, whether they are fixed or variable. As RevPAR is a key hotel performance indicator, we have actually chosen it as a threshold, a key threshold, and derive a formula for the calculation. We have applied the formula to Bangkok. One slide back, please. We have actually applied this formula to the Bangkok hotel market to determine various RevPAR thresholds for hotels of different positioning and different rate brackets. So basically, these are for your references in a normal operating environment. Next, please. Based on the RevPAR thresholds determined, we can calculate break-even occupancy subject to rate performance. So the average rate figures here are actual figures in 2019 for different hotel segments. So what this means is, for Bangkok in general, the break-even occupancy is relatively high, around 40 to 50%, given high rate pressure and rising labor costs. Next, please. So a lot of you would be wondering, we have prepared all the benchmarks for normal operation, but what it would be like in the post-COVID world. Here, from this point onwards, I have listed down key concerns to be taken note of when we're doing the benchmarking exercise. So first thing first, we gotta understand our carrying costs. These are actual costs incurred in order to keep your hotel in a good condition while it remains closed or semi-closed. So in a post-COVID world, when you are contemplating the reopening, you got to understand that the hotel is no longer starting from zero. It's actually coming out of net loss, and the amount of loss equals to your carrying costs. So even though within the first few months of reopening, your hotel is not hitting the break-even point, the overall loss is actually being brought down from when the hotel is being closed. Secondly, owners need to understand business model and cost structure. In a highly challenging time like this, demand sources could be drastically changed and become more dependent on domestic and low-yielding markets. So we should all bear in mind that heavy discounting as a result of strategic changes will need a lot more volume to compensate and break even. So the way to relieve occupancy pressure is to cut costs in every possible corner, starting from the possibility of partial opening. Think about the room section and facilities that could continue to be closed without materially compromising guest satisfaction. Then rethink and relook at your operational processes and staffing. Suspend and cut unnecessary ones in the near term in order to expedite and speed up your break-even. One slide back, please. So to speed up your break-even, for example, daily housekeeping, breakfast buffet, staffing of the closed area, see how you can actually reduce costs. However, you got to keep in mind that with the new market norms, these will incur additional costs. For example, disinfection, sanitization, not to mention compliance requirements in order to achieve health and hygiene standards. The third point is the most difficult one, because everyone needs to keep track and understand demand indication and develop your own view. Keep checking airport reopening and flight schedules, travel bubble partners, outbreak news in key visitor markets. Talk to hotel neighbors, talk to hotel associations, industry experts in order to understand the situation, business on the book, pickup pace, and forecast, basically. Then in terms of reopening, sit down with the team and go through all the steps and form the reopening budget. Last but not least, comparison of net cash flow between reopening and as-is scenarios. In order to do so, you gotta go through the monthly pro forma. In a similar way, you're doing your annual operating budget. In a table shown, this is a hypothetical scenario, but I like to just show that the reopening scenario will bring your hotel to break even in December. However, if you look at the remainder of 2020, the whole financial situation under the reopening scenario is still at a net loss. Still, it is improving from as if your hotel remains closed. More importantly, the analytics that we discussed today are purely numbers driven. There are some intangible benefits and potential threats that some hoteliers pay more attention to. For example, hotels that have not been closed at all or already open may care more for their staff, even though they're facing a far worse off financial situation. On the other hand, some hotels have already bypassed this year and postponed reopening to the following year. They could be too concerned about potential second waves, especially when the local community and authority are very, very sensitive to the outbreak situation, which could result in a lockdown anytime, like what happened in Japan and Singapore. So you gotta think through this carefully. Reopening and closing down again very soon could end up hurting yourself even more. And that brings us to the end of this presentation. Thank you very much.
Nikon, thank you. Thank you. Absolutely excellent. Really, really good, useful takeaways and insights. Right. We're going to welcome our final guest. No TTF will be complete without Wimindra Jangnin, who's the editor-in-chief of of Hotel Intel, who's going to talk about My Bangkok.
My Bangkok.
Tiniest rules.
Yes. Thank you, DJ. Vimita Raj from Hotelwinter.co, conceived, born and raised in Bangkok, and this is my Bangkok. Let's start with the first Bangkok, with the B. B is for bar and nightlife. That is what Bangkok is known for. Unfortunately, we're not open yet, but if you want some drink and alcohol, you can head to a restaurant and a hotel near you, like at the Rosewood, for example. Another one for Bangkok is A. A is for an app. That one I'm talking about, the Taishana app, that you'll be asked to scan a QR code to check in and out all day. Expect some mysterious SMSs from strange numbers to shoot into your phone. It's time to look at those phones that hotels are offering you. They are to be put in good use if you ever check in hotels and want to avoid those strange messages from Taishana app. N is here. N is for nature. Bangkok's air quality has now been improved. You can now walk out, enjoy the fresh air with your mask on. G is for golf courses. One thing that a lot of people don't know about Bangkok and Thailand is we have over 250 golf courses in Thailand. 50 of those are in Bangkok. On the downside, due to the social distancing policy, you can't get cozy with your caddy anymore. One golf cart, one caddy. K is for kids-friendly city. Bangkok is not the most kid-friendly city in the world, but if you love shopping, shopping malls in Bangkok are very kid-friendly. You can have we have mini movie theaters, we have aquarium, we have zoos, we have water park. You can leave them there and you can go shopping. O is for, oh my God, it's almost over. And K, for those people who are curious about, people who are curious about what Bangkok is, why do people call it Bangkok a city of angels? This is how we explain it. The longest capital city in the world, Gungthep Mahanakon, Amon Ratanakosin, and so on, I can't read. Bangkok, Gungthep, Gung means capital, and Thep means angel, and that's where Bangkok comes from. This is Vimita Raj, stay classy, Bangkok.
Good one, Mintra. Thank you very much for joining us today. Stay classy, Bangkok. Stay classy, Bill Barnett. Bill Barnett, just handing it back to you. Some last comments, please.
Thank you, David, from Bangkok. And we're almost out of time. So much to talk about in so little time. I think something that we want to talk about is thank you to our speakers today. Thailand Tourism Forum, 9th year. These guys are all passionate about what they're doing. They're not getting paid to put these presentations together. They're not paid to do this work. You know, they're passionate about tourism and hotels in Thailand. Our partners are important to us, and we've had the same partnership for a long time. The American Chamber of Commerce in Thailand, professional firms such as STR, JLL, Horwath HTL, Quo, certainly in terms of our branding, Delivering Asia Communications, and certainly my partner in crime, Charlie Blocker. You know, these are important to us, and we thank you guys, because this is an important part of our teamwork and presentation. Because people feel passionate about tourism here, and these guys are putting something back, so thank you all so much. I think as we look forward and kind of wrap today's messages going forward to say, it's a hard time, but if we want to reach the summit, we've got to start climbing uphill, small steps at a time. You know, I believe in this country. I've chosen to live my life here in Thailand, and I'm going to continue to live here. Tourism is an important part of this country, and it's the face of this nation. It continues to be, I always say that, it continues to be that way. And our journey is going forward, but tourism has to have a voice. Our hotels and everything else, we provide livelihoods. So when we look at the people around us and say it's more than just having room nights or discounted room nights or domestic tourism, international, these are the livelihoods of people in this country. And this is important. We've got to provide that as well. So I look at the people around us. This is a human business. It's that humanness to the business. So that is what's so important today. And that's why we're here talking about tourism Thailand. As we go forward and looks towards the end of the year, we still have other things to do. We have our, something that we've had the last few years is our Phuket Hotels Island Sustaining Tourism event. On September 7th, we're going to be back because what we understand is sustainability right now is not at the top of the news, but it continues to be one of the most prolific things facing our industry. On September 7th, we're going to have a virtual online event. You know, last year we had over 1,000 people. We're going to continue on, and all the money going for this event, where we're actually in charge of admission this year, is going towards our Green Planet Hotel School here in Phuket. And again, we intend to educate over 5,000 Thai kids for that. We're going to be sending you something after this event as well, and saying, please give a little bit of money for that. Because again, tourism is about putting something back and going beyond everything else. So thank you guys today. And you know, as we said today, it's about not having the narrative about things, what's going wrong in this country or what's going wrong with tourism or the big thing. It's about getting things done. So today we're going to go out there, we're going to get shit done about this. This is what tourism is about. We're moving forward one step at a time. We're going to climb that up. So thank you guys as well. Thailand Tourism Forum. We'll see you again in January. Thank you so much. Adikap.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everyone.
Bang, bang.